Hi, I'm Bill Bennett, and I run Warner Brothers Records here in Nashville. Warner Brothers Records in Nashville's probably it's its own has its own identity, but it's truly an extension of Warner Brothers Records in Burbank as well as Warner Brothers Records in New York. Uh, we do country music. We're good at country music, but we're trying to expand the definition of country music. We've signed artists that aren't necessarily country artists, and we've signed artists that are thoroughbred country artists, and we've signed artists that are bank shots that you have to like go over here and bring it back into the format. But I think they all share country music values. I mean, I do think the country music has its own set of singer-songwriter. It used to be mama, trains, drinking, and now it's kind of evolving into more of a singer-songwriter format. Well, there's still a huge distinction between the two now. By and large, the community, the country community, not defined by of which the label is just a part of it. It's a little more than a citizen, but a little less than an elected official. But the community is a community run by publishers, agents, but primarily songwriters. It's a songwriter's town. It really is. Producers find songs, connect them to the right artist, and make records. But more and more, you're finding the songwriters themselves are artists, and even when they're not recorded artists, they perform live. And probably the best kept secret about Nashville is you can go see some of the best musicians with the best songwriters, and most of them are pretty incredible singers, in clubs all night. And you'll go, when you hear somebody like Marcus Hummon or Jeffrey Steele or Rivers Rutherford are playing, if you go to those gigs, everybody in that audience is probably a world-class musician or is with one, because it's a magnet for that stuff here. And all the record companies, I mean, if you hear Rivers Rutherford's playing, you'll go. It's just pleasure to go watch these guys do their thing and do the original versions that you've heard on the radio by other people. Our primary purpose is to sign and market, sign country artists, create country careers in the country music field. Most labels here, all labels here, outside the Christian marketplace, which is pretty big here, are primarily country. The difference in the Warner Brothers, and because of my background at Geffen Records and at Maverick, I think Tom has a vision of, okay, go do your thing, and it may, if you find a great rock band, boom, let's sign it. If you sign a great pop act or you want to get into that business, we're one big company, and you can use our promotion department, our marketing apparatus, if you find the right record. And we work Faith Hill, we work her certainly outside the country marketplace. We use their advertising expertise, and it's a kind of a mutual relationship with Burbank. I think there's a country music. To me, there's a certain integrity to country music that I grew up with it. There are values that country music shares. I try not to let them get put in political terms or media terms. I think there are pop records that are country, and I think there are country records that are pop. But for this conversation, I would say country music is pretty much, unfortunately, defined by the country format at radio. There are Americana. There's another radio format called Americana that could easily be part of country. Certainly bluegrass is part of country. And in a lot of ways, old R&B is country music. So it's hard for me because I kind of feel like it's mostly Southern music. But right now, for this purpose, I think unfortunately, we're basically talking about what you hear on country radio, and which is barely the breadth of the actual genre. We just really think about the quality. Really do. If it's a great song and the guy has vision or the girl, we just signed an act, Lori McKenna, who I had never heard of, and I went to California and sit with Faith Hill. Hadn't made a record in 2 or 3 years. A lot of people were talking about it, and we went to hear 25, 26, 28 songs, and somewhere in the middle of her playing songs for us, she plays us 3, 4, 5 songs in a row that are stunning in the quality of them, but also because they resonated with Faith to the point where you really believe Faith singing about her own life. And so she told us about this girl she found, Lori McKenna, who had written these songs. So I assumed, I just moved here, I assumed she was a songwriter in Nashville who demos her songs, has a song plugger, pitch them to artists, and was lucky enough to get through to Faith. I got back to Nashville and found out that she had actually made a record. 3 records later, I found out. But she had these songs were on an album recorded by her. So I got the album from Paul, put it in my DVD player, and by the 3rd song, I'm reading the credits. There's a phone number. So I call her. I go, you got to come to Nashville. One way or the other, we want to do business with you. And so we've signed her, and we're going to make a record with her. We're not setting out to make a pop record, a rock record, a country record. We're going to make a Lori McKenna record. And when that record's done, and she's already recorded 3 or 4 songs, it is stunning. Now, all I know is it's going to be a great record. When we finish it and we'll sit down and look at it, we'll figure out how we're going to market it. Minneapolis is one of the biggest country markets in America. Chicago's a nice market. Obviously Texas, but Texas is kind of its own country within a country. But it's like NASCAR is big in California. There's a parallel there that it's all over the country. I mean, it's then without New York City, which I think there will be a country station there, but certainly rural America pretty much subscribes to it. The big shock to me, I think, was I grew up here, and I distinctly remember the first time I saw Johnny Cash on the street, or the first time I saw Johnny Cash play, or Johnny Cash introduced me to Eric Clapton, and things that are part of my life. They were always kind of a mix of country-ish rock, whether it was Graham Parsons or the Byrds or whatever. I've always been interested in that. But just recently, a girl who works here said to me, I remember the first time I heard Garth Brooks. I couldn't breathe. And to her, it was a seminal part of her life. And and I guess the epiphany is when you grow up in California, the idea that someone knows everything there is about Brooks and Dunn or Reba McEntire or even Sugarland today is really quite shocking because, my kids grow up in L.A., they know Fall Out Boy. They know Damian Rice. They listen to KCRW and K-Rock. So there's a whole massive culture out there of kids. They may wear their hat backwards. They may listen to Eminem and 50, but they drive pickup trucks, and they love Kid Rock. They love Kenny Chesney, and they love to rock. So I think that's the part that gets lost in the mix. I mean, you can't live in America without being touched by different culture. I mean, even here, you can't. So you go to a Big and Rich show, or almost any big country act. Dixie Chicks, Rascal Flatts, Big and Rich, all draw teens, young teens, middle age. I mean, 13 to 25, so maybe go up into the 30s, but the same crowd you would see Fall Out Boy, would draw at Staples Center. And they're growing up with country music. And they, by the way, love rock music. love R&B music, love rap. And it's all getting just like it does in your life. If you're shooting at anything, you'll miss it. You got to make great records. You got to make adventurous records, and you got to, shoot. Just make great records, and people will be attracted to it. If you try to catch something, you've already lost. You just got to make great records, and we have artists that, by the nature of their careers, Faith Hill and Big and Rich and Blake Shelton, who are platinum artists, who bring with them, a core of fans. But no, if anything, the new artists we've signed, like Ray Scott, Shannon Brown, we've just signed a guy named Lance Miller, Jimmy Stewart. We're trying to sign this band called the Lucky Bucks. They're going to be very youthful country artists. And I think if we don't do that, then there will be no country music if you don't have kids. So, no, my thing actually is I think we're probably shooting younger. We're really consciously trying to make younger country records. Well, I think that it would be misconception on anyone's part to think that they're not just American teenagers as well, and they have the same savvy technology as kids in big cities do. So yeah, when we watch the flow of file sharing, illegal and legal, I think it's the legals maybe 3 or 4% of all the hundreds of thousands every day, and we do watch the flow back and forth to see if a TV show worked, if a song played at a concert worked. We do watch peer to peer a lot. Yeah, and certainly all of our music's being stolen. That is by far the biggest downside to it. And I can't fret over it because I can't stop it. So I have to leave that to people who deal with those things. But what I can do is watch it and learn from it and try to get information out of it and treat it as data. So in a town that is a songwriter's town, the loss of intellectual property is a huge, huge deal. So there's a fairly sophisticated political apparatus here, and there's huge lobbying efforts, in Washington on behalf of songwriters and publishers out of Nashville. So, and they're very good at what they do, and it's certainly something we're all trying to stop. A few years ago, my daughter came to me, and I was working with this band, Secret Machines, and she said, "Dad, you're not going to believe, there's like a bunch of people on MySpace talking about Secret Machines." So I'm like, that's great. I go to Burbank and said to our IT guy, "Is that us?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not saying I'm not, And 2 weeks later, there it was in the Wall Street Journal. So MySpace is an obvious place. Any community where there's that much blogging going on or that much confessing going on, is going to attract people who are going to take advantage of it, marketing. So I think MySpace now is almost a marketing tool since it's been bought. And it's not something you really attempt. I think historically, and just in my experience, if you start out to cross over, then you kind of lose where you should be starting from in a weird way. In the country marketplace, traditionally, it's pretty proprietary, and they don't really, the country stations, and to some extent the country infrastructure, has not been really kind to crossovers. You don't hear a lot of nice things about Shania Twain, and Faith to an extent had a backlash because she had a huge pop album. If it appears that you're pandering, it's a big, big mistake. So, I mean, since I've been here, we haven't attempted, in fact, we've never even really discussed a crossover, and we've even gone to attempts to protect ourselves from a crossover unless it organically happens. And it really does have to be organic. If it appears there's a market outside of it, and it can be dealt with, and there's some dignity to it, and there's some integrity to the project, then it's okay. the upside to that stuff can sometimes far outweigh the future prospects of a project. And it's a intuitive, collaborative, much discussed, much maligned process. With Faith Hill, particularly, this new album of hers, which came out in August, she distinctly went in there to regain her credibility in the country marketplace. She made a brilliant country record, one of the best country albums I've ever heard. And we have gone to some lengths to protect that. We didn't want certain, we've said to the pop stations, look, you want to play it, that's your business. But we're not giving it to you. We're not asking you to play it. And I think Keith Urban's going through this right now, where Keith Urban has a 2 or 3 year old single on, I think, Hot AC right now. It's top 10. That I don't think Keith encourages, supports, embraces, So crossover is not that big a deal to us anymore. And I think the term crossover, which is a radio term, becomes less and less important in the future when you can go to Yahoo or take the pipe to Germany and have an international hit, which is where I hope online marketing really makes the difference and gives us an opportunity, because country artists don't tour Europe. They don't travel overseas. And, it appears there's no culture to support, in Japan, no, Australia and Canada. There's obviously a rural, agrarian, I guess, society that, that could support it. But I've always thought that you could have country music in Germany, France, Italy, and England, or any country, if you just got a chance to expose it. But there's no country radio in any other countries. So my mission this year is to somehow break one of our artists overseas, if not 2 or 3. I'm not trying to be glib about this, but I can't emphasize enough that timing played a huge was a huge factor in probably the current crop of people who run the business. If you look at all the people who run record companies now, I'm almost all about the same age, grew up with the same generation, and it really was when the LP and FM radio kind of just exploded. Today, I think there's much more opportunities, but on a much smaller level. If you can get your foot in the door, the only advice I would give people is to be great at what the opportunity before you is. If you come in as an assistant, or you come in as a T-boy, or you come in as a song plugger, be great at it and then exceed that position. Because every company I've ever been a senior executive in, I always looked for the people who exceeded their position, or people who could create influence inside the company. And every company's got them, whether it's a record company or a radio station or CMT. When you go to companies, you meet people, get it, they have influence, and I always go, I could hire that guy. I'll meet kids. I go, okay, keep an eye on this one. And I think it may be intuitive. I think I did promotion for so many years. You just meet people and you go, okay, got it. Later you find out maybe it's not the right person, but it's generally somebody who's come in and made the most of the opportunity. And no sense of entitlement. Oh my God, I finally made it. Look around, see how it works, But be great at what you do, and you will be noticed. Yeah. I don't know what I would have done. Somehow to live your entire life in blue jeans and to have a front row seat, if not a third row seat on some occasions. I've been very, very fortunate. I have met some of the most interesting people on earth. And I've worked with some of the smartest people. And I have such a respect for musicians and such a respect for anybody that will follow their dreams. And to be able to be a part of that, it's a gift. It's truly a gift. And then to be able to make a living at it, or, to even exceed whatever you thought you were going to do with your life. Yeah, it's a gift. It's truly a gift. I don't know what I would do if I didn't. I probably would have slapped my kids, you know. I got to think about what would I do if I worked at a bank and I had to wear suits and now I like to wear suits because I never wear, wow, I get to wear a suit. I get to work with your dad. I mean, I loved working with your dad. And it really enlightened people you get to meet, and kind, gentle people. It's just interesting. It's fascinating. I got to watch David Geffen's mind operate. Was just like going on the road with Bruce Springsteen. Before he was Bruce Springsteen, like down in the South where we would go into Birmingham, Alabama, and you wouldn't sell out. And you're like, I'm out there, you gotta go. And it's great. I got to go through all of that stuff. I think if you're a great musician, just persevere, It took me a long time, and I grew up with musicians my entire life. I grew up with kids who were the sons and daughters of country people and who were musicians. And to me, I think even into my adulthood, I couldn't make the distinction between a musician and a star. And I had friends of mine I was growing up with, and they would say to me, I would go, why don't you go make a record? And they'd go, I don't want to do that. I just want to make a living at playing the piano. Well, how are you going to do that if you're not going to be a star? I don't want to be a star. I just, and it took me a while to sort that. In Nashville, it's obvious. But even when I lived here, I didn't understand that. So in this town, you can make a living as a great living as a musician, and there's recording studios everywhere. I mean, I guess it would be as simple as practice would be the answer. But it goes back to that focus and that, do you have that resolve? Do you, I'm gonna do this? And my assistant before Darcy is a great singer, and we had some problems with follow through, and so one night we were at a party, and I said, would you get up and sing? And she blew people away. I mean, she's a great singer, but I knew she was a great singer because she had given me type. She's one of 1,000 people that you're going to meet in Nashville that, well, I'm really a picker, or, or I'm an actor in Los Angeles. So finally I sat down with her, and I said to her, here's what I'm going to let you go because you're a singer. You're not an assistant, and it's tough on you to go from one character to the next. So let's work out something. If you don't, you're going to turn 40 one day and hit your kids. So you got to go do this. I swear to you, the next week she got a job singing opera on Broadway. And it's just, and this town is full of those people. And you got to make a living, but sometimes you just got to let go. And if you'll let go, those things will happen.